She started yelling like the world was ending, I thought, staring at the ancestry kit on the kitchen table. My name is Russell Dunn, 37, a mechanical engineer from Portland, Oregon. I have spent 15 years designing gears and engines, crafting a life that felt unshakable. My modest house on Northeast Gleason Street, my job at Tide Hall Studios, my wife Monica, and our 6-month-old son Owen. 6 months prior, in February of this year, I ordered a deoxyribonucleic acid kit for fun, intrigued by roots my grandmother once hinted at, some vague Irish lineage tied to a fisherman's tale. It was not a grand plan, just a way to fill a rainy weekend, something to share with Owen as he grew. I brought it up to Monica over breakfast at 7 a.m., the kitchen warm with the scent of coffee. She scrolled through her telephone, half listening, as I said, "I am sending one in. Thought about doing one for Owen too." Her spoon halted midair, oatmeal slipping back into the bowl. "For the baby?" she asked, her voice tightening like a strained cable. "Yes, why not?" I replied, sipping my coffee. "Be good to see what mix he has got. Maybe some of that Irish blood." She set the spoon down, a nervous laugh escaping. "That is weird, and a waste of money." I raised an eyebrow. "It is $90. Relax. We can afford a little curiosity." Then I mentioned I had already swabbed Owen's cheek that morning, thinking it a harmless detail. Her face transformed, eyes widening, breath catching like a stalled engine. "You did what?" she shouted, voice cracking with a sharpness I had never heard. "Why are you doing this? You did not even ask me." The words poured out, a torrent about privacy, trust, and boundaries, but beneath it all was panic, raw and unguarded. I stood there, hands in my pockets, steady as always. "Why are you so worried?" I asked, keeping my tone level, searching her face. She did not respond. Her lips trembled, tears brimming, and she bolted to the bedroom, the door locking with a decisive click. That night she barely glanced at me, her silence a weight heavier than her earlier outburst. I sat on the couch, the kit a silent sentinel on the table, its presence gnawing at me like a misaligned gear in a machine I had built. I did not push. That was not my nature. I have learned to endure since my father's stroke 5 years ago forced me to shoulder his debts, working extra shifts to keep the bank at bay. Monica had been my anchor then, practical and reassuring, her hands steady as she helped me rebuild. But now, something felt off. I noticed her late-night calls, her quick, guarded looks at Owen, as if she feared his gaze. Was it the cost that troubled her or something deeper from her past? I did not know, but the kit sat there, a question mark I could not dismiss. The rain tapped against the window, mirroring the unease growing inside me, a rhythm I could not tune out. I constructed my life with deliberate care, each piece fitted by hand. 5 years ago, in 2020, I married Monica after 2 years of steady dating, convinced she would share my load. I poured long hours into Tide Hall Studios, shaping machinery with precision, while she kept our Portland home orderly. I surrendered weekends to clear my father's debts, signing over savings to silence the bank's demands. Monica stood by me, cooking hearty meals, calming my late-night worries with a quiet touch. I trusted her implicitly, though my sister, Abigail, once murmured about Monica's secretive spells, her tendency to withdraw without explanation. Owen's arrival 6 months ago altered our rhythm. He became my pride, tiny hands grasping at air, bright eyes tracking my face, a future I longed to nurture. I rocked him through restless nights, footing bills for diapers, formula, and doctor visits, seeing it as the foundation of our family. Monica seemed joyful then, her laughter filling the room as we debated crib colors and nursery themes. Yet hindsight revealed fissures. She ceased mentioning her family, deflecting my questions about her Eugene childhood with vague smiles. One evening, I overheard her on the telephone, her voice low and urgent, speaking to someone named Ethan, her cousin, she later insisted, though her tone carried a tension I could not place. The signs sharpened 3 months ago. She began slipping out for yoga at odd times, 7 p.m., 9 p.m., Returning with excuses I accepted, too weary to probe. After the kit incident, she grew distant, retreating to the far edge of our bed, her back a wall. I found a bank statement tucked in her drawer, $5,000 withdrawn last year, no note or receipt. It was for my mother, she murmured when I asked, turning away before I could press. I let it slide, but doubt took root, a seed I could not uproot. At work, I calibrated machines by their subtle hums and clicks. Monica's hum was off now, short, clipped answers, hasty exits from rooms. My coworker Liam noticed too, asking over lunch if everything was all right. I shrugged, muttering about stress, but inside, I wondered if Abigail had glimpsed a truth I missed. Monica's panic over the kit felt too personal, too visceral for a simple financial gripe. Was she concealing something about Owen's origins, about our union? I held my tongue, observing in silence, the kit a mute accuser on the table, its shadow lengthening with each passing day. The results landed in my electronic mail 3 weeks later, arriving at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday in August 2025. I opened the file alone in my office, the steady hum of machinery fading into a distant drone as I absorbed the words. Owen was not mine. 0% match. My hands shook as I cross-checked the kit number, the submission date, every detail, no error, no glitch. I printed the report, retreating to the couch where I sat for an hour, eyes fixed on the wall, mind blank. Not sadness, not fury, just a hollow ache as if a core gear had been wrenched from my life's engine. Monica had let me believe I fathered Owen. Worse, she permitted me to pay. Prenatal appointments, hospital delivery, $18,000 over 6 months, with legal costs still to come. She knew, or at least suspected, and kept silent, her deception a silent blade. The thought twisted my gut. I recalled her tears that night, her locked door, not fear of wasted money, but guilt thick and undeniable. I did not raise my voice or shatter anything. I placed the report on the kitchen table and waited, the paper a quiet judge. Monica returned at 6 p.m. from her yoga class, her steps slowing as she spotted the envelope. "What is this?" she asked, her tone light, as if it were a utility bill or a takeout menu. I offered no reply, watching her slit it open. Her hands quivered as she scanned the page, her mouth falling open, eyes darting to mine in a fleeting, panicked glance. "I can explain," she began, her voice faltering. "You do not need to," I cut in, my tone flat, devoid of emotion. I walked to the counter, set my house keys down with a soft clink and left, the door closing with a final click. I drove to a diner on Southeast Hawthorne Street, parking under a flickering streetlight. I ordered coffee, letting it sit untouched as my mind churned. This was not merely a lie, it was a theft, stripping me of money, trust, and the future I had envisioned. The next morning at 8 a.m., I called my lawyer, Victoria. She listened patiently, her voice steady. "In Oregon, paternity fraud can justify a reimbursement claim," she said. "We need solid proof, texts, financial records, anything." I had it all. Evasive messages, the unexplained withdrawal, a voicemail from Ethan hinting at Monica's past. Victoria agreed to initiate divorce proceedings and a financial claim, her confidence bolstering mine. That night, in a modest motel on Southeast Stark Street, I sifted through old photographs. Monica and me on our wedding day. Owen's first gummy smile. I tucked them into a drawer, not with anger, but with a hardening resolve. Monica had overstepped, and I would not let it stand. The kit had unlocked a truth she could not bury. I began a list, expenses, dates, evidence, my hands moving with the precision of my trade, drafting a blueprint for justice. Not yet revenge, but a plan to reclaim what was mine, step by quiet, deliberate step, the motel's hum a backdrop to my thoughts. I confronted Monica 2 days later, on a Thursday at 10 a.m., choosing a quiet park near our house where the morning mist clung to the grass. Owen was with her sister Isabella, granting us a rare moment alone. I handed her a copy of the report, its edges crisp in my hand. "This is over," I said, my voice low but firm. "I want my money back, every cent I paid for Owen." Her face flushed a deep red, eyes narrowing. "You cannot do this, Russell. It was a mistake, not fraud." She stepped closer, her voice climbing. "You are overreacting. Owen needs you. How can you abandon him?" I shook my head, unwavering. "He is not mine. You knew." Her eyes flickered, a flash of guilt breaking through her defiance. She reached for my arm, her fingers brushing my sleeve, but I pulled back, stepping out of reach. "I am filing for divorce and reimbursement," I continued. "Get a lawyer." She stood there, mouth open, then turned away, her shoulders trembling as she walked off. She called that night at 8 p.m., her voice breaking through sobs, pleading for me to reconsider. "It was one time before we were serious," she said, her words tumbling. "Ethan pressured me. I did not think it would matter. I was scared." Ethan, not a cousin but a friend from her past. The lie unraveled like a frayed rope. I hung up, my resolve unshaken, the telephone's silence a stark contrast to her cries. The next day I visited the bank only to discover a $5,000 withdrawal I had not authorized, Monica's forgery, a bold stroke I had not anticipated. Victoria moved with urgency. We filed a police report for the theft and a civil claim for $18,000, encompassing prenatal care, delivery, and subsequent costs. Monica countered with a claim of emotional distress, her narrative shifting from outright denial to accusing me of provoking the kit test. The court scheduled a hearing for October 2025, giving us weeks to prepare. Meanwhile, she whispered rumors at her dental office, painting me as the deserter. Co-workers grew distant, their greetings curt, and Liam pulled me aside, warning of her growing influence among our social circle. I hit a wall. The bank froze my accounts pending an investigation, leaving me with a mere $100 to my name. Monica's lawyer threatened a countersuit, alleging harassment based on my calls. In my motel room on Southeast Stark Street, I lay awake, staring at the cracked ceiling, feeling the trap tighten around me. Yet, I pressed on. I contacted Isabella, who, after hesitation, admitted Monica had voiced doubts about Owen's paternity before his birth. She handed me a stack of texts, proof of Monica's awareness. I passed them to Victoria, who studied them with a grim smile. "This tilts the scales," she said, her confidence infectious. Monica's resistance grew desperate. She enlisted Isabella and a friend, Natalie, to her cause, claiming I was unhinged. Natalie called, her tone soft but insistent. "She is your wife, Russell. Let it go." I hung up, my decision cemented. The financial strain deepened, motel bills, legal fees piling up, but I refused to yield. I moved into Liam's spare room, his cluttered space a temporary haven. He brought me coffee each morning saying, "You are doing the right thing, man." His support steadied me. I needed more leverage. The forgery was key. I dug through old records, unearthing a canceled check with my signature, a sloppy imitation. Victoria subpoenaed bank footage, the evidence building like a well-oiled machine. Still, Monica fought harder, changing the house locks and posting a no trespassing sign. One evening I stood outside, glimpsing her through the window, Owen in her arms. My chest tightened with a pang, but I turned away. This was about her deceit, not the child I could not claim. The truth cut deeper a week later, on September 5th at 3 p.m. when Victoria's call broke my focus at Liam's kitchen table. "Russell, there is more," she said, her tone grave. Bank footage revealed Monica and Ethan together, cashing the forged check with practiced ease. Ethan was no fleeting mistake. He had been entangled with her for years, even before Owen's conception. They had conspired, siphoning my money to cover his mounting debts. That $5,000 withdrawal was a down payment on a car for him, a fact that turned my stomach. This was not a lapse in judgment, it was a calculated betrayal woven through our marriage. I withdrew from conversation, sitting alone at Liam's, poring over years of records, bank statements yellowing at the edges, Text messages saved on an old device, photographs faded but telling. Monica had forged my signature on multiple documents, transferring small sums to Ethan over time, a drip that had drained my accounts. I uncovered a lease agreement in her name, signed last year, for a modest apartment in Beaverton, evidence of a separate life she had nurtured in secret. My trust, my savings, sacrificed to prop up her deceit. I sought out Grayson, a retired mechanic who owed me for repairing his shop's engine 5 years ago. He listened over a cup of black coffee, his weathered face nodding. "She played you, Russ, but you can fight back." He handed me a flash drive loaded with software to recover deleted files from Monica's old laptop, left behind at my place. I worked late into the night, the glow of the screen illuminating Liam's spare room, pulling up emails that laid bare her and Ethan's scheme. One message read, "He will never check. Too trusting." My fists clenched, nails digging into my palms, but I kept my composure. My emotions evolved. The hollow ache gave way to a focused clarity. Monica's panic over the kit now made perfect sense. She feared its revelation. I adopted a friendlier tone on her calls, asking about Owen, pretending to waver. "Maybe we can talk this out," I said, my voice measured. She latched onto the hope, suggesting a meeting at a coffee shop on North Mississippi Avenue. I recorded the encounter, her voice cracking as she admitted Ethan's role, begging me not to destroy her life. I saved the file, delivering it to Victoria with a steady hand. The deeper truth was a searing wound. Not just money, but my identity. Father, husband, provider had been usurped by two I had trusted. Ethan's involvement reshaped the stakes. I reached out to Abigail, who had long suspected Monica's moods, and she brought old letters from my mother, hinting at Monica's family legacy of debt and a father who vanished. The pieces fit. Monica had married me as an escape, anchoring herself with Owen. I felt no blind rage, just a cold, clear resolve. I would strike back not with violence, but with the weight of evidence, turning their carefully laid plan into their undoing. I set my plan in motion on September 15th at 9 a.m., stepping into a bank on Southeast Division Street to open a new account under my mother's maiden name, shielding my remaining savings from Monica's reach. Victoria filed a motion to freeze Monica's accounts, wielding the forgery evidence like a lever. I handed her the flash drive and recording, watching her eyes narrow as she reviewed them. "This is strong," she said, her voice carrying a hint of satisfaction. "We can demand full restitution and a restraining order." I nodded, the weight on my shoulders lightening just enough to breathe. I turned to Grayson for support. He contacted Ethan's employer, Stone Pine Holdings, posing as a creditor with a debt dispute. Ethan's boss, a burly man named Harold, grew suspicious and audited the books, uncovering irregularities, funds missing, traced to Monica's account. Grayson slipped me the report, and I passed it to Victoria, who subpoenaed Ethan's financial records. The trap was tightening. I recorded another call with Monica, feigning a desire to negotiate, coaxing her to admit the car purchase. Her voice quaked, but she believed I was softening, a miscalculation that would cost her. The complications struck swiftly. On September 20th at midnight, Ethan confronted me outside Liam's place, his breath reeking of whiskey. "Back off, Dunn," he growled, shoving me against the wall, his hands rough on my jacket. I stayed calm, not retaliating, and dialed the police. They arrived within minutes, arresting him for assault, a charge that bolstered our case. Monica called soon after, her voice a frantic wail. "You are destroying us," she cried. I hung up, my pulse steady, unfazed. The legal deadline loomed, October 10th for the hearing, but the evidence was stacking like bricks in a wall. Another setback emerged. Isabella, under Monica's pressure, refused to testify. "I cannot do this," she said, her voice trembling over the telephone. I lost her support, a blow to our narrative, but Victoria found Natalie willing to speak, swayed by Monica's unraveling lies. I reclaimed documents from the house with a court order, uncovering more forged checks buried in a filing cabinet. Monica blocked my access again, installing new locks, but the damage was irreversible. I took a consultant role at Raventhorn Legal to bolster my income, the work a grounding force amid the chaos. Ethan's arrest unraveled his facade. Stonepine Holdings fired him, citing theft and misconduct, and his girlfriend, a quiet woman named Clara, walked away, unwilling to face the fallout. Monica's resistance waned. She ceased calling, her lawyer's motions growing weaker. I set a final snare, leaking the recording to a friend at the Portland Observer who published a discreet article on paternity fraud. Her dental office colleagues read it, their allegiance shifting, leaving her isolated. She tried to counter with a public apology, but the tide had turned. She sold her jewelry, likely to cover legal fees, her desperation palpable. The stakes climbed higher. My savings were secure in the new account, but the hearing approached, a deadline I could not ignore. I stayed sharp, reviewing every detail with Victoria in her office, the clock ticking toward justice. Monica's desperation showed. She pawned a necklace I had given her, a symbol now tarnished. I felt no glee, just the steady grind of a plan coming to fruition. The trap was set, and I would see it snap shut, one measured step at a time. The hearing convened on October 10th at 10 a.m. in Portland's courthouse, a gray building on Southwest 3rd Avenue. Victoria presented our case with precision. Deoxyribonucleic acid results, recordings, bank footage, Ethan's arrest record. Each piece laid out like components in a well-tuned machine. Monica sat across the aisle, her lawyer whispering urgently, her posture rigid. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair, listened intently as Victoria argued paternity fraud and financial deceit, her words cutting through the room's quiet hum. I watched Monica's hands clench the armrest, her eyes fixed on the table, avoiding mine. The ruling came at 2 p.m., the judge's gavel echoing. She granted the divorce, ordering Monica to repay $18,000 for child-related expenses and an additional $10,000 in legal fees. The house, titled solely in my name, remained mine, a victory secured by Ethan's involvement. His firing and arrest had weakened her defense irreparably. Victoria handed me the signed papers, and I nodded, feeling a quiet relief wash over me, no trace of a smile. Monica's face paled to a ghostly white. She stood abruptly, her mouth opening then closing, a fish gasping on dry land. "This is not fair," she shouted, her voice cracking with desperation. The judge struck the gavel, issuing a sharp warning. Monica sank back into her chair, tears streaming down her cheeks, hands rising to cover her face as sobs shook her frame. Ethan, seated in the back, glared with impotent rage, his reputation in tatters, his silence deafening. The room began to empty, but I remained, observing her slump, the realization of her lies cost sinking into her bones. I walked out, the papers crisp in my hand, the weight of 6 months lifting like a released spring. No gloating, no raised voice, just the steady satisfaction of an engine restored to its proper rhythm, justice humming beneath my steps. That afternoon, I drove to a secluded bend by the Willamette River, parking near a stand of alder trees, and sat on a weathered bench, watching the water ripple under a pale sun. The house was mine again, and I immersed myself in its repair, patching cracked walls with plaster, sanding scuffed floors with careful strokes, tasks that anchored me to my craft. Abigail visited a week later, bringing a pot of vegetable soup, her presence a warm counterpoint to the cold months past. I needed no grand celebration, just the steady cadence of my hands shaping something whole. Monica faced the full brunt of her actions. The repayment order drained her finances, forcing her into a cramped one-bedroom apartment near Teagard, its walls thin and its rent a constant strain. She lost her dental office position, her colleagues turning their backs after the newspaper article spread, leaving her reputation in ruins. Ethan, sacked from Stonepine Holdings and abandoned by Clara, drifted to a run-down motel on the city's outskirts, his trucking career a memory, his future bleak. Isabella severed all ties, her shame at Monica's deceit a barrier she would not cross. Their once tight social circle dissolved, Monica's name whispered as a cautionary tale in Portland's quiet corners. I thought of Owen often, hoping he would find a stable path despite the chaos. But I could not claim him as my son. That life had been built on shifting sand. One evening I built a small fire pit in the backyard, tossing the deoxyribonucleic acid report into the flames, watching it curl and blacken, the past reduced to ash. My revenge was not a shout. It was a quiet reclamation, earned through persistence and proof, a victory I carried in silence. Reflecting on this journey, I see it reshaped me. I am no longer the man who trusted without question, but one who rebuilds with eyes wide open, grounded in what is true.